Hey everybody, I hope that you are still doing well in this quarantine season of life. I know that we did not expect quarantine to last this long. I certainly, at the beginning of this year, did not think that life would look like this in April. But I think that that's actually a really good illustration for this book of Ecclesiastes that we've been spending time in. And today I want to take you guys through chapters 4 through 6. And I'm not going to go through it verse by verse or anything. I think I just want to hit a couple of the author's main ideas because I think you can read through it and it really only takes about an hour to get through the book from start to finish, even if you read slowly. And so here's my challenge to you. I want you to take some time today and read through the whole book and then do it again tomorrow and then do it again the next day, because as you read over and over, you'll notice that things start to lift up to the surface from the text, and you're going to notice things and you're going to understand it more. I think the way this book is best understood is if you really stop, read slowly, meditate on the words, and take your time with it. So let me go back to this word that has already been introduced by Hannah and Charlie. It's hebel. It's Hebel, and it's a word that doesn't have a one-to-one correlation in English. Some of our Bibles might say meaninglessness or vanity. And in my own study of people who are way smarter than me, I think my favorite word or my favorite translation for this word hebel is actually absurd. And what I mean by that is you expect one thing in life and then the opposite happens. It's illogical. It's absurd. And so life is absurd. These different scenarios that the author presents, they're just absurd. You expect one thing and then the opposite happens. He says life is a vapor. Hebel is a vapor. And it gives you this image of a billow of smoke. And you think that it's a solid, and when your hands go to grab it, it actually ends up being just a vapor, and you can't grasp it. And so life is ingraspable. It's incomprehensible. And as I was thinking about this word, this image came to my mind, and it's an image that my mom took of me when I was about 1 year old, and I'm sitting in the bathtub, and I'm staring at this stream of water that's coming out of the faucet, and my hands are doing this. And my mom said that I used to sit in the bathtub and stare at the stream of water coming from the faucet, and I would just try and grab it and my hands would go through, and I'd get so frustrated. And in the picture, I think my face is like I'm just screaming out of frustration that I can't grasp this water because it looks like it's supposed to do one thing and it's doing the opposite. And I think that that's what the author is kind of getting at. It's this sense of frustration at life when we expect it to be one way, but it ends up being the opposite way. And that's what hebel, that's the heart behind this word hebel. And so what I want to kind of focus on is in chapters 4 through 6, the author brings up this idea that wealth is just hebel. Wealth is hebel. The accumulation of things is hebel. And what does the author mean by that? Is the author saying to accumulate wealth is bad? No. I think what the author is trying to say, and really kind of kicks off this idea in some extreme language in the beginning of chapter 4, is that in life, if you're seeking after wealth, you are going to have just as much comfort in your wealth as the person who has nothing has in their wealth. There's just no comfort in it. There's no satisfaction, and there's no contentment. If you have a lot of wealth or if you have no wealth, you still have no contentment, because contentment can't be found there. And I think a lot of times we try and manipulate life with the tool of money. And what I mean by that is we think that if I accumulate this salary someday, or if I have this job someday, then I'm going to have everything that I need and I'm going to be happy. Or others of us, we think, if I can have this number in my bank account, then I'm going to be content and I'm going to feel secure. And I think one thing that we're learning in this quarantine season with coronavirus is that at any moment, those things that we find our security in can be taken like that. And so a lot of us, unfortunately, are learning that in a very, very difficult way. It's like we have spent our whole lives building this business or or accumulating this amount of wealth in our stocks, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all of that just goes to nothing. What we're learning in this season of life is that if we find our contentment and if we find our joy in wealth, it can be taken from us in an instant. You see, the author of Ecclesiastes is ultimately after joy. He's trying to figure out, what is joy? Where do we find it? How do we attain joy? And what he's saying is that it's not going to be in something that can be here today and gone tomorrow. And we certainly can't use things of this world to control our lives. And I think the picture that comes to mind of me sitting there in the bathtub when I was 1 year old, trying to grab the water, trying to manipulate it. A lot of us try and do that with our lives, meaning we try and use these different tools to produce a certain outcome in our life. If I do this, then this is going to happen. And if I don't do this, then this won't happen. And what the Bible is showing us is that, truthfully, in reality, life just isn't black and white like that, meaning we don't live in a world where karma is true. And I think we know that from experience. Like, I can put something good into the world and get something bad in return. And so the author is trying to show us that there is something beyond this world that we can really find our contentment in. I think one of the most profound things about this book is that the author is showing us that the more we try and control our lives, whether it be through wealth or the accumulation of things, fashion, people, popularity, whatever, the more we try and control those things, the less happy we're going to be. It's just going to be toil. And then if you let go and realize that God is ultimately sovereign, that we can't control anything, that's where we start to feel this sense of contentment and joy. It's a paradox. It's absurd. It's hebel. So, you guys have a lot more margin in your life right now than you've had in past months. And so I want you to actually take some time to reflect. I want you to look at your life honestly. And I want you to ask a few questions. I want you to just sit down with God and say, what is it that I have been putting a lot of my stock in and I've been hoping for contentment in that just hasn't delivered? And so have those honest conversations, be authentic with yourself, and I hope that you guys realize that God is worthy of finding your satisfaction in Him and Him alone. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon.